What's up? In this video, we're going to talk about nutrition basics, and we're going to go over some terms and start talking about tracking our macros and figuring out how to make nutrition work for you. So to begin, we're going to go through some key terms here. So to start off with, calories. We're going to go through what calories are, and what they are is just the word that we used to describe energy, the amount of energy in our food, right? So with that, everything we eat or drink has calories in it besides like water, right? So next, maintenance calories. This just means the amount of calories that you have to eat to maintain your weight. So to maintain what you're weighing. If like you're not losing any weight from week to week, that means that the calories you're eating right now are your maintenance calories, right? Next, calorie deficit. This is the amount of calories that you need to be losing weight. So if you're in a deficit, it means that you should be seeing weight loss, and it just means that you're eating less than you're burning, right? Next is a calorie surplus. This is essentially the opposite of a deficit. If you're in a surplus, you should be seeing weight gain, and it just means that you're eating more calories than you're burning. Next is metabolism. So we're not going to get super deep into metabolism. It is very complex, but to put it simply, it's just all of the different things that happen within your body that ultimately you're building, and you're also breaking down things all at once. So all the matter in your body is always like working like this. And metabolism, whenever we talk about it being like fast, it just means that your body burns more calories at rest, right? If you have a slow metabolism, it means that you're not burning a lot of calories. So moving on, metabolic adaptation is another key term that I'd like you to learn, because when you're in a deficit for any amount of time, your body tries to adapt to this by slowing down your metabolism. And that's what metabolic adaptation is. That's why when we get in a deficit and we stay there for a little bit of time, you'll notice that those calories stop working. So you'll notice that your calories have been the same, you've been losing weight, and then all of a sudden you stop losing weight. It means that your metabolism adapted. So you saw metabolic adaptation, and now we just need to go further in a deficit somehow, right? All right, so moving on from there, we're going to go deeper into each of these key terms. So calories. What is a calorie? Like I said, it's a measurement. When you hear that something contains 100 calories, it's just a way of describing how much energy your body could get from eating or drinking it. So just remember that it's calories in versus calories out. Your body literally does not care or know where the calories are coming from. So if you ate like all of your calories in chocolate bars and you were in a deficit, you'll lose the same amount of weight than if you ate chicken and rice, the same amount of calories in chicken and rice, you'd lose the same amount of weight. It's crazy, but the reason that the food does matter is micronutrients, and you're going to feel a hell of a lot better eating chicken and rice versus all of your calories coming from chocolate bars. So we have to meet somewhere in the middle, right? All right, next, calories in. That one's super simple. It's just all you eat and drink, right? Anything you put in your body, calories in. Calories out gets a little bit more complex, and we're going to go through that. To start off with, TDEE is total daily energy expenditure, and we're going to talk about that. That's the sum of all of our calories out. That's how much calories we burn. And I added a label here. You can always see how much calories are in a serving. And remember, we're looking at serving size. Especially the 55 grams here, you're always going to see some sort of a weight number, probably in grams or like ounces. And that's how much of something has 230 calories. And remember the servings per container as well. So a serving size is only 2/3 a cup of whatever food this was, but there's 8 servings in this container. So that 8 times 230, that would end up being a lot of calories if you ate the whole container. So remember to pay attention to those things. Right, next, we're going to talk about that TDEE that we just mentioned. So there's 4 components that make up how many calories you burn, right? There's your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. And all this is what you burn at rest. And most of your calories are burned at rest. So if you were to lay in bed all day, that's what your BMR would be. And your body, that would be pretty much your metabolism. That's when you're burning the most calories. It's like 60% of your calories are burned with your BMR, right? Next is your NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. These are going to be big science words. You don't really need to know them, but it's better to understand how things work and how your body burns calories. So NEAT is anything like how I'm talking with my hands, fidgeting, just day-to-day things, like anything that you're not doing exercise on purpose is considered NEAT. So if you go on a walk, that's not NEAT, but if you're just walking from your car day to day, that is NEAT. Hopefully that makes sense. Next is exercise activity. This is any intentional exercise. So going to the gym, going on that walk, like I said, working out in any capacity. Next is TEF. That is the thermic effect of food. So the thermic effect of food is it takes calories to actually digest your food. And TEF, there's not a whole lot of calories that come from burning up your food, but protein does give you a higher thermic effect of food. So if you've ever heard of the meat sweats, it's real. So if you eat a lot of protein and you feel like your body's like on fire, you're sweating, it's literally because your body takes more energy to break down protein. So totally makes sense. And all of these add up to your maintenance calories. So your TDEE equals your maintenance calories, and that's what we need to figure out, right? So for us to lose 1 pound of fat per week, obviously we want it to come from fat and not muscle. So 1 pound of fat equals about 3,500 calories, right? That's how much energy is in a pound of fat. So for us to lose 1 pound a week, we need to eat 3,500 calories less than our maintenance calories per week. So to figure that up, to figure out how much calories you'd have to eat less per day, you take 3,500 divided by 7 equals 500 calories a day less, right? So you need a 500 calorie deficit from what you're eating now if you're maintaining your weight to start losing pounds. And this will never be exact or perfect. So it is completely up to trial and error. And you're going to notice that there's going to be some weeks where you don't lose any weight, or maybe you gained a pound, and it might not even be from extra calories. There's so much that goes into it. So it's all trial and error. There is no failing as long as you're trying with this, and you're going to see the weight going up and down. And as long as the overall is going down for fat loss, obviously, then we're on the right track. Right? And this is how you will determine your macros. So obviously I use a different calculation than what you might use on your own. It's essentially the same thing, but I also look into a few different factors to figure out your macros. But I'd like to give you this resource so that whenever you ever in the future need to figure out your macros, or maybe you're helping out a friend, you can use this free macro calculator from Precision Nutrition. You just type in Precision Nutrition and then calculator and you'll find it. And that will give you a rough estimate. But like I said, it's all trial and error. So next, you want to make sure that you're tracking for 1 to 2 weeks and trying to hit those numbers, and then figure out what your body weight does from there. So it takes that long to determine whether any changes you notice are due to your plan working or not working, or if it's just like body fluctuations, right? And then next, for this all to work, you have to be really honest with yourself. So if you're not tracking honestly, it's not going to work. So make sure any bites, tastes, anything like that, you're plugging them in. Even if you don't feel like it's good or like on plan, if you track it, it gives us numbers to go off of. So never think of things as good or bad. It's all numbers. So it's all data that we can look back on and figure out how to adjust and figure out how to go from here. So one of my favorite things is one of my clients, we talked about she likes to drink on the weekends. Okay, that's totally fine. So we tracked all of her drinks and we'd see how many calories she had. So her goal was like 1,800 calories a day. And when she would track on the weekends, it was like 3,500 calories. But she tracked everything. And what this allowed us to do is to adjust that number a little bit, give her a different goal on the weekends and something to track on weekdays. And she still is seeing fat loss now because we did those things and she tracked honestly. So just remember, even if it doesn't feel like it's on your plan, just track it anyways. All right, next we're going to go deeper into what macronutrients are. So macros are the big nutrients that have calories associated with them. And there's 3 main ones that we are going to track. And then there's also alcohol, which we don't get a lot of nutrition from, so we don't essentially track this. So to start off with, carbs, there is 1 gram of carb for every 4 calories. So anytime you have a gram of carbohydrate, it means you're eating 4 calories. So simple math, 25 times 4 equals 100 calories, right? Fat is going to be a little bit different. Fat is a lot more calorie dense. So that means 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So if you do 9 times 5, you get 45 calories, right? 5 grams of fat is 45 calories. And then for protein, there's the same as carbs. It's 4 calories per gram of protein. So if you had 10 grams of protein, you have 40 calories. And then with alcohol, this is technically the fourth, but like I said, we don't want to focus on this because we don't want to actually get many alcohol calories because it doesn't offer much in terms of health benefits. It's kind of like empty calories. It contains 7 per gram. And just remember that there's no alcoholic beverage that is actually 0 calories. Sorry, I wish there was, right? All right, moving on from there, we're going to talk a little bit more about macros. So get myself out of here. Most foods and beverages are made up of a combination of macros, so it's super unlikely that you're going to find a food that only has one type of macro, but whatever it contains the most of is what it would be considered. So for example, brown rice is mostly carbs, so it's like 85% of the calories come from carbs, so we can consider brown rice to be a good source of carbohydrates. Cashews are mostly fat. They also contain some carb and some protein as well, but you can see here 68% of cashews are fat, so we consider cashews a good source of fat, right? So if we're trying to fill our fat macronutrient, cashews is a good option. Next, lean chicken breast is mostly protein, but most protein comes with fat, and it doesn't contain any carbs. So you'll see over here, cooked chicken breast, 81% calories comes from protein. So this is a good source of protein. And that's how you can kind of read your food labels and figure out what foods are a good source of what macronutrient. All right, next we're going to dive deeper into each macro and why they are all important. Understanding the why behind why you are eating certain foods and why we don't cut them out is so important. This also helps if you talk to your friends, your family. After you watch this, talk to them about these food items, and it's going to drill it in your head and have it memorized so that you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing and why we don't cut carbs out completely, right? Ever. So to start off with, carbs break down into sugars, which give us energy for immediate use, but also for storage. So if you've heard of glycogen in your muscles, when you're working out, your body uses the carbs to work out better, right? To build muscle, to give you energy. So we need carbs to fuel our lifting sessions and just to feel good. If you've ever done low carbs, it causes low blood sugar, dizziness, fainting, feeling chronically tired, difficulty concentrating, high hunger. So if you've experienced any of these, might be time to up your carbs, right? So they also contain fiber, a type of carbohydrate that improves your digestion, which we will have fiber goals, and we'll talk more about that. And low carbs actually cause bloating because of not having enough fiber in your diet. So some examples of some foods that are high in carbs would be like fruits, vegetables, plain pasta, plain breads, whole wheats, cereal, sweet potato, rice. Just read your food label and you'll figure out what kind of food source it is. And just remember, most people do well with 40 to 60% of their calories coming from carbohydrates. That means most people don't do well with keto, right? All right, next we're going to go over protein. So having a high protein diet is going to help you to feel full, and it improves your metabolism because we're going to use that protein to build muscle, right? So proteins break down into amino acids, which can affect muscle composition, and it's involved in creating mood-regulating neurotransmitters. So think serotonin. We need that. Lack of protein leads to anemia, so if you feel super tired all the time or bruise easily, probably need more protein in your diet. Protein gets used like a carb in our bodies when we eat low carb and high protein. So this means if you've ever done keto in the past and you ate too much protein compared to what you should have been eating, then you probably weren't actually doing keto right, which is most people. High protein foods almost always contain some sort of a dietary fat with them. It's completely normal. The same thing happens in our bodies. Anywhere there's muscle, there's probably body fat associated with it. And the same thing happens with animals. So some great sources of protein include animal meats, seafood, protein powder, eggs, and egg whites. And then any protein fortified foods like protein bars, Greek yogurt, and things like that. There's also vegan sources, but the problem with vegan sources is sometimes they contain higher carb content as well, like tofu, seitan, soy, and dairy products that are regular fat will also have high protein, but they come with fats and carbs too, so just remember that. And then you want to aim for 15 to 35% of your calories coming from protein. Right? And hopefully you're staying with me. If you need to pause the video now to take a breather, there's a lot of information in this one. Make sure you're taking notes, and just remember that this is going to feel overwhelming, especially if you haven't heard of macros or calories before, and that's completely normal. This is about learning and taking your time doing it. So just that reminder, pause, get a drink of water, do something like that. I'm going to do that as well. All right, now that we got our break in, we're going to talk about fats. Dietary fat is essential. That means if you don't consume enough, you're going to disrupt your hormones and not feel so good. So fats break down into fatty acids in your body, which it helps certain structures of our body, like our brain, nervous system, and cell walls. So you can see why getting dietary fat in is so important. Without enough fat, it can lead to brain fog, reproductive issues, dry skin, weak immune system, hair loss, and vitamin deficiencies. And the reason you can have deficiencies is because there's certain vitamins that are fat soluble, which means they dissolve in fat. So if you've ever read on your vitamin D bottle, it says, eat this with a meal. And the reason they're saying that is because if you don't have any fat that you're eating it with, then the vitamin D won't absorb correctly in your body. Right? Super important. They don't teach this in school. Next, great sources of fats include egg yolks, butters, nuts, and seeds. And then oils, olives, avocados, the fatty parts of animals and fish like ribeye or salmon, and then coconut as well. And 20 to 40% of your calories should come from fat. And what I've found is that women do really well with having a minimum of 30% of calories coming from fat. All right. Next, we're going to talk about how to read our food labels. So we talked about this a little bit to see where most of the calories are coming from, right? So your total calories are going to equal the fat calories times 9. So 12 times 9 would be the calories that are in here, right? And then carbs times 4. So 31 times 4 plus the protein times 4. So all of this together adds up to 250 calories, right? And then just remember too, that labels, unfortunately, can be off by 30%. So this is why we don't get stuck or hung up on having completely accurate food entries, like whenever we start using MyFitnessPal, and we don't get too hung up on the correct entry for a restaurant or for going out to eat, or if somebody made something homemade. And the reason is because labels can be off by so much. So even if you were completely perfect and you had everything right, it's still going to be off. So we're not aiming for perfection, we're aiming for consistency, right? So moving forward, how do I start tracking my macros? So you might be already tracking them. If you are more ahead in FitAF Academy, then you might be already tracking, but if you're not, what we're going to use is called MyFitnessPal, and it's one of the easiest apps to get started with. It is free. You do not need the premium version, so don't get the premium version. You really don't need it. So MyFitnessPal is a perfect way to add all of this up so that you're not doing any math. It's going to add it all for you, and then there is an extensive food base. So whatever you do, you can scan foods, you can look them up, and they will most likely have the entry that you're looking for, which makes it super easy. So again, we're going to go over some different examples here. This is a macro cheat sheet. Go ahead and screenshot this if you'd like. It has tons of different ideas here for proteins, fats, and carbs. What you want to do is hit your macros primarily through a variety of minimally processed foods. So what does that mean exactly? It means foods that are mostly whole foods. The more processed something is, the more it loses its nutrients. Doesn't make it bad. It just means that you're missing out on some nutrients that you need, right? So lean proteins, fruits and vegetables, whole grains and legumes, nuts and seeds, and pressed oils, those are going to be most of your whole foods. And you're going to see quite a few examples here. So anything that's overlapping has both. So if you're looking for something that has all three macros, look here. Pizza and fried chicken, full fat milk, protein bars. If you only need fat, look in this area. If you need fat and protein, look in this area. And there's all kinds of different macro cheat sheets that you can look up. If you go into Google and look up macro cheat sheet, you're going to find so many different ideas here. And I have a ton myself too. This is just for ideas though. It's more about building your own program, your own like meal plan from your own preferences. And only you know your preferences and you know what's going to work best for you. All right. Next, I do want to really push this and help you remember this. We're not just eating nutrients, we eat food, right? So food is so much more than just grams of protein, carbs, and fats, and meals aren't just a chance to hit your macro goals. And I don't expect you to feel that way, right? Meals are also an opportunity to experience pleasure, spend time caring for your body, and share it with the people you love. So think like events, date nights, having pizza night with your family, fueling yourself before a workout. There's so much more to food than just macros. So remember that. Every meal is a chance to connect with yourself and with others, and every food choice is an opportunity to direct, shape, and remake your health. So tracking is a tool, it is not forever. With FitAF Academy, the first 3 months, you're going to learn how to track macros and how to do it well. And then moving on from there, our goal is to get you to where you don't have to track macros ever again. It's just a tool to start reaching your goals and to learn what is in food, essentially. So I think that's it. All that we're going to do from here is your homework. So what I want you to do is use the free calculator to see what your calories come out to, and we're going to check them with what calories I am giving to you. They probably won't be exactly the same because, again, like I said, I use a couple extra things in here to figure out what your personal macros are. I just want you to become familiar with how to do that. So this is going to be an essential tool for whenever you want to figure out your macros anytime in the future. Say you get to a point where you're like, wow, I'm done losing weight, or I'm done building muscle. Like maybe I want to do a cut, or maybe I want to have a muscle building phase or something like that. Or maybe I just want to maintain. What should my macros be? And I want you to be able to use this and maybe teach somebody else along the way, help them out. If you have any questions, please let me know and send me what your macros are once you have them and once you figured them out. Just send them to me in WhatsApp or via email, whatever works best for you.